Hey guys, I'm going to be doing a tier list for different anime movies. And so I wanted to just go ahead and go over some ground rules. I basically wanted to say, hey, look, there are multiple movies and multiple franchises. You'll see Jujutsu Kaisen, you'll see Seven Deadly Sins, Mewtwo, so that's going to be Pokemon. There's tons of different Pokemon movies. So I didn't really want to rank all of them, but today we're going to be going over a lot of different anime movies. And so I just wanted to pick one from each franchise to say, okay, I'm counting this in an anime ranking, but I don't really want to go through all 20 of those because that could take forever. And so I wanted to start with some good ones. I think there's about 17 of these, I believe, if I counted correctly. And so S tier, obviously, kind of very self-explanatory, and then don't watch those. I do have some of those on here. But let's just start with Boruto. Okay, so y'all are going to hate me, but this is actually a really good movie. Okay, the fact that Naruto and Sasuke kind of steal the show is just indicative of how we really love that series, like Naruto as a whole. Because Boruto, he's really lame in this movie. He is very bratty and obnoxious and kind of spiteful for really no reason at all. Like, okay, your dad is not around a whole lot, and that really sucks. I get that, man. But at the same time, he's literally like the president of the village. He's the Hokage, but you know what I mean. He's the leader for the entire village, and he has to go through all of this different paperwork and also be the strongest ninja to fight at ever, basically. And so it's really kind of just a spit in the face to us anime fans, us Naruto fans, when you have this little kid that doesn't understand anything. And I understand that that's the point of the movie. He has to kind of go through that himself and understand what it takes to be a hero, what it takes to be a splendid ninja. But also, it's very stupid because it's almost every single frame or whatever you see Boruto, he's literally crapping on our favorite franchise. And even when he kind of like at the end, well, I don't want to ruin it for you if you've never seen it, but basically at the end, he kind of turns around a little bit. You'll see that in the movie if you watch it. But really, it's just kind of stupid because I don't really like him. Even when he does turn around, it's not very satisfying. It's like, okay, you should have done that from the start. I don't understand why you're acting this way. Like, I don't understand. He kind of does some cheat, skills. He like, not to throw in my favorite isekai anime, I got a cheat skill. But anyways, he kind of throws in some cheating, and it's just the stupidest thing ever because he has to, do these certain tricks in order to get by, even though he doesn't do hard work because it's like, oh, well, Naruto does tons of hard work, but Boruto, his son, nah, I don't care about hard work. That's not the point of the series. I'm just, super duper awesome, and I already have this powerful Rasengan that is literally invisible. And it's like, okay, dude, I don't really care. The whole movie is like Boruto kind of changing his feelings, but he should have already kind of respected his dad in the first place. There's like the only reason, okay, maybe he's not there presently that much, but it's like, bro, come on, give this man a break. And I understand it's a little different, but okay. I've talked a lot about that movie already, but anyways, let's just say that it's an A tier. It's very solid. Naruto and Sasuke fight in it, and it's one of the coolest things ever. And so, like, it's not S tier because it focuses a lot on Boruto. So there you go. Okay, a silent voice. Y'all are gonna hate me, but this movie is not hate me, but you're gonna be surprised because this movie and Your Name you think are kind of similar, but they're totally different in my opinion. And so I wanted to just go over like, oh, well, a silent voice is very realistic and dark and gritty. It's like, yeah, I know. That's why I like it. I did a video on this a long time ago, almost, it's been over 6 months, I think. But this had such a great story because it was so realistic. It dealt with depression. It dealt with, I don't want to spoil too much, but it dealt with like self-harm, and it dealt with all these different deep, heavy topics. And it was surprisingly good. It was very, mature in tone. I didn't talk down to you, and it wasn't very nice. Like, it didn't have a nice, not coherent. It had a coherent story, but it didn't have a nice and kind of sugar-coated story. It was really intense, and I just enjoyed it so much because I thought it was better. Like, a lot of these anime movies are just so, supernatural and, fanatical and fantastic, filled with fantasy, that I was so relieved to find a movie that actually brought you down to earth and said, hey, this is an anime movie, but you are going to be thinking about real life, real problems, and, stuff that actually matters in life. Not that a fantasy movie can't deliver good storytelling, because I think it can. I just think that, like, the themes in this movie are just superior to almost all other anime movies. It's going to be hard for me to put one of these, like, above it. It probably could be the best, just because, like I said, the real world applications to this movie are kind of insane. It's so easy to see, how this guy, he struggles to be a person, really, like, to be a good, decent human being. And he tries to make amends, but he messes up a lot. However, it is sort of a romance story, so she kind of relents a little bit, and it's crazy how she kind of does a little bit of a 180. She was really, really bullied and tormented by him and his friends, but he is really, he's doing the most. I swear, he's doing the most to get her back, to get her trust and, respect back. And that's hard, man. I don't know if this would be see, that's why I love this movie, is because you'd think that, so this deaf girl, right? She literally had these, ear, what are they called? Oh yeah, hearing aids. And he ripped them out of her ear once, and like it made her bleed because they were partly, connected to her, like her head or whatever. It was crazy, dude. But then so many years later, after all of that torment, she actually kind of, forgives him. And it's wild, because you think that, no, that's unrealistic. But, crazier things have happened. People who have had their families killed by a psychopath said that they, even in court, they said that they forgive them, and that's a beautiful story of, like, forgiveness, even though it's not that it's actually really hard to forgive someone. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that it's not so easy, right? And that's what I'm saying, is like the forgiveness aspect of that is almost unbelievable, but it's not, right? Like, it has happened. And so I could talk about that all day long. Yeah, Konosuba, the movie was terrible. Don't watch that movie. It's just like, there was no plot, really. Like, they went to go do this thing and see this thing or whatever, and they hung out in this village for a while, and like, but it was all fan servicey weird stuff, So it just kind of left a blank for me. I thought Konosuba was like decent, and I heard we're getting a season 3 next year, 2024. But I just don't really like this show, because after a while it gets super boring. Like, the comedy is just very, very repetitive, Spirited Away was like decent. Like, it's a B. You could definitely watch it. It's a girl who goes on this isekai journey, basically, to get her parents back. And she has to kind of grow up in the process a little bit. Oh, wait, I just described every single Studio Ghibili movie of all time. And also every other anime movie of all time. So it's just like, I just don't really see the draw in this movie. I understand that it's well made, it's well produced, it's, the animation's great, the soundtrack is fantastic. Like, all those things that make a good movie are there, but it just doesn't really, hit me it doesn't make an impact on me because it's like the same anime story every single time. And also, it just didn't really leave me with anything, right? Like, it was interesting and like No Face was cool, but you realize that there's not really all. I think Studio Ghibli just relies on the animation aspect and like, hey, look at this really cool and aesthetically pleasing movie. And then they're just like, let's just do the same story we've always done. And it just doesn't really work for me, So that's why Studio Ghibli, I've got a couple more that I've watched, but it just really stings me, I just can't really stand it, honestly. It's not a bad movie. Like, it's a B tier for sure. You can turn it on and watch it. It's not that you shouldn't watch it. It's just that I personally don't prefer it. And I think that's really hard for a lot of people. But, I think we just need to move on to Evangelion. And this is where I really, I honestly think that this one is just as, like, decent. It's a little bit too kind of, graphic, I guess you could say. Not graphic, but, like, displeasing in a demoralizing way. This movie, let me tell you about this movie. The show Neon Genesis Evangelion? Well, the guy who made that show, he said that this movie was basically a, how do I say, kind of a middle finger to the audience, because he said, hey, if you guys didn't like how the series, because a lot of people were mad about the series and how it ended, but he wanted to make a kind of a beautiful, psychologically pleasing, I guess you could say, finale, and he did that. And I think the finale for Neon Genesis was great. I think it was very solid, but and it's about a kid who was depressed, Shinji, who finally accepts who he is, and he can also move on, and like that's the whole point of Evangelion. But people were like, where's the action? Why didn't you like blow stuff up? And then in this movie, he was like, End of Evangelion is what it's called. He said, oh, well, okay, well, let me just wham. And he just hits you with, oh, you like this character? Oh, well, they're the worst person of all, actually. I don't know if you've actually seen it, but it's a 30-year-old movie at this point. Almost. Not really, but like 25 years old or whatever. In the first like 5 minutes, Katsuragi dies. It's like, okay, well, she's like people's favorite character, and he's like, oh, well, you like her? Well, too bad. She gets just absolutely destroyed by gunfire, like riddled with bullets. And you're just sitting there like, I don't like this at all. And I think that's really just kind of where he said, you know what, if you don't like this ending, then I'll make you an ending, but it's not going to be one that you like an alternative ending. They say it's an alternative ending, but actually it didn't happen, so he rewrote it, reshot it as, Evangelion Once Upon a Time or something, or Thrice Upon a Time, 1.0, 2.0, all those different things, and so I think that it's like, yeah. Well, okay, so this, I don't want to talk about Evangelion all that much. I could do a whole nother video. But okay, so Mewtwo Returns. Mewtwo was actually a really good movie. Like, I know that people say the first one, Mewtwo Strikes Back, is like the first movie, I think. Kind of a weird title. But I really like this movie. I don't know why. I think it was because I personally watched it a lot when I was a kid. I watched the first one, but not as much. And so this one just really had a great story of like Mewtwo taking care of, the clones that they made. And they go to this island and Mewtwo like protects him like he's their dad. It's very cool and, a solid movie even to this day. Like if you could watch it and turn it on, and the dub is wild, man. Brock, he's so good. When he says that line of like, I've turned my, frying pan into a drying pan, when he puts it on top of his head. It's like, that's so stupid. But anyways, also, isn't iron like, for his frying pan, isn't that like very, he's in a rainstorm, so like, and I assume there's thunder, so like, wouldn't that, blow him up or whatever? I don't know. Wouldn't he be struck by lightning? Anyways, Promare. Yeah, this was wild. Studio Trigger, they like, it wasn't unwatchable, but it was pretty darn close. Like it's bottom C tier because the story was just so dumb. It had some cool animation and some, it's like this story about a guy right here who's a fireman. He wants to put out fires. And this Promare guy is like, he is a fire. He just, starts to use fire or whatever. People just have this like breakout. Some people can use fire. Most people can't, but the people that use fire like just cause destruction. Like they need to burn. And it's the same thing as Studio Trigger always does. It just ends up in a big mess of animation that you can't tell what's going on. And it's honestly like they just really want to make some weird movie in different ways. I swear, Promare, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, Kill la Kill. I wish I knew another Studio Trigger off the... Oh, Darling in the Franxx. Somehow they are all the same piece of entertainment. I don't understand it. It's like it's the same thing. Studio Trigger makes the same movie but in a different skin every time. I don't know how they do it or why they do it. But yeah, just not very good. Like if this was the only anime movie on Earth and you had to watch it, I would like you could only watch one movie. It was the last one on Earth. You couldn't find any other anime movie. Then yeah, I mean, watch it. Go ahead. It's not going to kill you, but it's dangerously close to the don't watch. Your Name. Okay, so it's not a C tier. All right, it's not that bad. The problem is that I just don't like the premise, I guess you could say. Animation is fantastic. The voice acting, fantastic. Even the dub, very good. But like the actual kind of story of the two switching bodies, I think that's a little bit overplayed. It's not bad. Like the first half of the movie wasn't bad. Okay, it's bottom B tier. The first part of the movie wasn't bad, but I think what the problem was that I just didn't enjoy what it turned out to be. Like the first hour or whatever, it's a pretty long movie. It's like over 2 hours, I think. But anyways, even if it isn't, the first hour or so, it has some good, interesting stuff. I think the girl switches into the body of the guy and she actually gets a date with the guy's like older female crush, like his senpai. And then the guy like helps kind of build relationships in the small town or whatever with her other friends. And then it just gets weird, man. It gets way too like weirdly complicated, and I hate those movies that just kind of overcomplicate and like do the weird supernatural stuff too much. Like, come on, I'm not gonna watch the movie when it's so convoluted. Like, you don't need to do that stuff. Like, honestly, one twist is good, not 50 million different twists that don't actually like serve the plot at all. They just are there to confuse you and get you to say, that was such a great movie. It was so like intellectual. It's like, no, it's not. It's just confusing for no reason. Like there's a difference between Inception, which is a cool movie that kind of leaves you guessing, that, kind of subverts your, what you're thinking is going on, into like, oh, this is kind of a smart movie, versus like Your Name that's like, oh, well, we just did some random stuff and then we kind of like flipped it again and twisted it again. And we made this other twist that, it's like, are they really that way? Is the plot actually going to turn out like that? And then it's like, no, at the very end, it just kind of wipes all that stuff clean. It's like, but that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really, it doesn't seem coherent at all because it's not, and so like, if you end up watching the movie, that's fine. I'm sure you'll love it. A lot of people, most people do. I think it's kind of overplayed and a little bit convoluted, or a lot convoluted. So I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for that, but that's pretty much what I have to say on this. The Seven Deadly Sins movie, actually not bad. Not bad at all. Definitely, if you're a Seven Deadly Sins fan, you should give it a watch. It's called Prisoners of the Sky. I mean, they just fight demons. That's literally what they do, I'm not going to be too much on that. So the Jujutsu Kaisen Zero movie was actually a really good, movie. It was so slow in the beginning, and I didn't really like the main character, like what's his name, Yuta. But I think if you watch you got to watch the first season and then you got to watch this movie because it's a prequel movie, but just to understand everything. And also, even if you're watching season 2, it has stuff that plays into there. So I think that, the more mainline stuff that you watch, then you watch this movie, the more you'll be impressed. The animation was great. The fighting sequences, awesome. But I don't think that it really was, like, if you just take the last half of the movie, oh, that was awesome. The fights, they were great, That's like a 9 out of 10. But, you put all this other stuff, it's like an 8 out of 10. It's like low A tier, I guess. And so then you have Kaguya-sama Love is War. Great movie, fantastic. The only thing, the first kiss that never ends is what it's called. Only thing is, like, it kind of deals with the fallout of their, end of season 3. I don't want to spoil too much because it is technically a serialized show. I know it seems episodic, but it's not. I'll just say about this movie, very solid. It is kind of like high class, high tier, top notch Kaguya-sama. It's just not as sort of like bombastic. It's a very deep story that's psychological. It's not very loud as season 3 was, and so I think that season 3 ultra romantic, it literally holds on to its title as ultra, right? Like uber excessive shows of affection, displays of affection. But this movie doesn't really do that. It's a lot more subtle. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's actually a great aspect of Akasaka's writing, that he can do that he can please you with a story that doesn't have tons of action or really tons of drama per se. Not drama, but like moving drama. The characters actually going places. In this sort of sense, because you had the culture festival at ultra romantic. And so if you think about this movie, it's more about, well, what does he think about me? What does she think about me? And it's more psychological than anything. So that's what I'll say about that one. Very good movie. Whispers of the Heart. See, this is hard because honestly, it's not a bad story. And the beginning is pretty good, but it just gets so boring. This girl is basically like she reads books and she's working on this poem or song. She's working on this song and she meets a guy and they kind of talk or whatever. And then they realize they kind of like each other. And that's pretty much it. They make some music together. It's not very good, honestly. I would say don't watch it, but if you like Studio Ghibili, you'll probably love it. So, I mean, that's just me. I'm not very good, I guess. I have poor taste in that. If you want to say one thing about my anime taste, that I don't like Studio Ghibli movies, that's fine. I don't care. I'm not gonna hate on you. You're right. You're very right. Yeah. So this movie was kind of okay. The Tunnel to Summer, The Exit of Goodbyes, was pretty good as far as anime movies go. It wasn't terrible. It just kind of left me thinking, I mean, very interesting premise. I think that the whole tunnel kind of like distorts time. That's a great aspect. That's a very cool and interesting way to develop these characters. But also at the same time, I think it's a little contrived. I think that what happens in the end of the movie is just a little lame. I didn't really accept the finale or the ending as anything other than kind of just mush, right? The end just doesn't really satisfy you. It's just left it there like, okay, well, I guess that kind of makes sense, but it's weird. And it's not very, it's not very exciting or anything. It doesn't really do anything for me. And that's another thing about me. I'm not an artsy fartsy type of guy, right? Where you look at these particular movies and some of them you're like, oh, Spirited Away, oh, beautiful, 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. It sucks. It's boring, you know? I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to say, if you love it, you'll probably put it in S tier. I know a lot of people, they think it's the greatest anime movie of all time, but I don't care about, oh, great cinematography. Like, if you put that in with a great story, you know, this one, then I think that it plays well. But if you just have all that stuff that makes it a quote unquote good movie, that doesn't make it a good movie for me, right? Like, the plot actually matters. And I don't really relate to these movies, maybe because I'm not Japanese, or also maybe because I'm not 5 years old or whatever, or how old this girl is, 9 years old. So maybe some of these are like kind of kids movies, these Ghibli movies, but also they're not bad stories. I just think that they're overplayed and they're sort of the same thing. Oh man, the Bubble movie. Yeah, again, kind of just a, what's it called? Words bubble up like soda pop. It's a movie about a guy who makes haikus. That's literally it. And this girl is like helping him, or the guy's helping her kind of figure out about this mystery. This guy kind of lost a record or whatever of his wife, he thought, or his daughter or something like that. And they try to like find it out for him, this old dude. And they have this like festival at the end, and that's pretty much it. It doesn't even end well. It's just like, hey, yeah, you know how like these two people kind of like each other, the guy and the girl like each other? Yeah, we're not going to address that at all. We're just going to have this dude kind of like shout out a haiku and then end the movie. Sorry to spoil it for you, but that's literally it. It's the palette, the color palette and the art style. Oh, they are amazing. They're incredible. They're one of the greatest I've ever seen. Even better than, I think, More Than Married Couple But Not Lovers. I think that's it's one of the most aesthetically pleasing anime movies of all time. But the plot is just horrendous. It's terrible. One Piece Red was so freaking good. It was a musical, and I loved every second of it. I liked the songs even though they were in Japanese. But you could really tell what was going on. If you like One Piece, you'll love this movie. Even if you don't like One Piece, as long as you sort of know kind of like what happens in One Piece, you know about Luffy, you know there's a Straw Hat Pirates, you know there's these things called devil fruits. It's great because it parallels a real life story of the girl Ado, I think it's pronounced, this Japanese singer who gets to sing the songs. She got started out on these like weird kind of video sharing sites, almost like YouTube, but like Japanese YouTube. And that's like the same exact thing that happens in the movie about the main character Uta. Oh, it's so great. Very, very great film. You should watch it. Best of this 2022, in my opinion. I think it was better than Jujutsu Kaisen. So, The Cat Returns, actually a good Studio Ghibli movie. That's crazy. I think that one of the greatest things is that this was just such a solid like isekai movie where this girl turns into like a cat, going into a cat world. And also Anne Hathaway is the main character in the dub, and it's amazing. I love her in that. She should voice more anime movies. But I think that this one is just so cool because like Baron, this cat dude right here, he's just so cool. He just like beats up every single person in the film, and then he's like, oh, well, I'm going to give you some incredible wisdom that will last an entire lifetime. And I'm sitting there like, oh, this guy's really cool. He's a great character. There's nothing really wrong with the movie per se. Doesn't hold up on a second or third viewing. I think that once that you watch the whole thing, it's it. That's all you should watch. But I think it's pretty decent. It drags on a little bit there in the middle, but pretty good. Definitely better than the rest of these Studio Ghibli movies. And then My Hero Academia. Oh, this movie was fantastic. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's called World Heroes Mission. So they go on this world, mission where what's his face? Deku, he becomes a fugitive of the law. Oh, and it's amazing. Like, the animation's great. The fights are fantastic. Todoroki and Bakugo get an amazing fight, both of them, in this movie, and I think it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite anime movies. So, yeah, I don't think that there was too much that I missed. This is probably my favorite anime movie of all time, and I just like My Hero a lot, so that kind of plays in personal preference. One Piece Red was solid. I mean, so good. The soundtrack, I still listen to that to this day. Almost a year later. And then Boruto movie, very solid. Jujutsu Kaisen, good. These are like, these five, if you like the series, you're going to like their movies. But then like Cat Returns, I think it sneaks in there as A. Because it's a little bit better than Spirited Away. And then like these had some big problems with them, but not enough to say don't watch them. Whispers of the Heart, not good. Sorry. I'm just not a Studio Ghibili fan. Sorry. And then Konosuba, yeah, just not watchable. But yeah, I think A Silent Voice is my favorite anime movie. And that was pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this tier list, and make sure to subscribe and let me know about your favorite anime movies. Did I get these wrong or what? As always, this is Eagle-Eyed Samurai, signing off.
Perfect.